Imagine a vessel so vast it blotted out the horizon. A ship with 3 towering masts, sails that covered an acre of sky, and sides lined with row upon row of black cannon mouths, silent, waiting, deadly. This was the ship of the line, the ultimate expression of naval power in the 18th century. More than a warship, she was a floating fortress, a mobile city, and a symbol of national might. For over 2 centuries, from the late 1600s to the mid-1800s, these wooden giants ruled the seas. They decided the fate of empires in battles that shook the world. At Trafalgar, the Nile, Quiberon Bay, and the Chesapeake, ships of the line clashed in thunderous broadsides that could be heard for miles. Their names? Victory, Sovereign of the Seas, Royal George, echo through history not just as vessels, but as legends. Yet for all their grandeur, they were fragile. Built of oak and hemp, they could be shattered by a single well-placed shot or swallowed by a storm. Their crews lived in squalor, their decks ran red with blood, and their victories were often paid for in lives by the hundreds. But in an age before steam, steel, and radio, the ship of the line was the pinnacle of human engineering, a testament to what could be achieved with wood, wind, and will. This is the story of these maritime titans, how they were born from the chaos of naval warfare, how they evolved into instruments of global dominion, and how they faded not with a whimper, but with the quiet dignity of giants who knew their time had passed. So settle in, dear listener. Let the creak of rigging, the sigh of canvas, and the distant roll of cannon fire carry you back to the age of sail, when the ocean was a chessboard and the ships of the line were the queens. The ship of the line did not appear overnight. She emerged from a century of brutal experimentation in naval warfare. In the early 1600s, sea battles were chaotic affairs. Ships would close, grapple, and board one another like floating castles, a tactic inherited from the galleys of antiquity. But as cannons grew more powerful, admirals realized that concentrated firepower, not hand-to-hand combat, would win the day. The turning point came during the Anglo-Dutch Wars, 1652 to 1674. The English and Dutch fleets, both packed with agile frigates and merchantmen-turned warships, struggled to gain advantage. Then, in 1653, the English Admiralty issued the Fighting Instructions, a revolutionary doctrine that ordered ships to form a single line of battle, each vessel following the next, firing broadsides in unison. This line-ahead formation maximized firepower while minimizing the risk of friendly fire. To execute this tactic, a new kind of ship was needed, one strong enough to withstand enemy fire, large enough to carry dozens of heavy guns, and stable enough to sail in formation. Thus, the ship of the line was born, not as a single design, but as a role, any warship powerful enough to hold its place in the line of battle. By the 18th century, this role was formalized. Navies classified their ships by rates, a system based on the number of guns. Only first, second, Urso, and third-rate ships were considered true ships of the line. The rest, frigates, sloops, brigs, were scouts, messengers, or raiders, but never part of the main battle line. This was the golden age of sail, when Britain, France, Spain, and the Netherlands vied for control of trade routes, colonies, and the very soul of the ocean. And at the heart of it all stood the ship of the line, majestic, terrifying, and utterly indispensable. To build a ship of the line was to undertake a national project. It required forests, foundries, rope walks, and thousands of skilled hands. In Britain, the work took place in royal dockyards like Chatham, Portsmouth, and Deptford. In France, at Brest and Toulon. In Spain, at Ferrol and Cadiz. Each nation had its own traditions, but all shared a common foundation: oak. A first-rate ship of the line required over 6,000 mature oak trees, enough to level 40 acres of forest. The keel, the backbone of the ship, was laid first, often in a ceremony attended by dignitaries. Then came the frames, curved ribs that gave the hull its shape, followed by planking, caulked with oakum and tar to keep the sea out. The process took 2 to 5 years, sometimes longer. During the Napoleonic Wars, Britain built ships so fast that timber was sometimes used green, leading to premature rot. But in peacetime, care was meticulous. Every bolt, every nail, every block was inspected. The masts, often 100 feet tall, were made from single pines imported from the Baltic. The design evolved steadily. Early ships had high forecastles and stern castles, relics of the boarding era. By the mid-18th century, these were lowered to improve stability and gunnery. Hulls became longer and sleeker, with sharper bows to cut through waves. The most famous designer was Britain's Sir Thomas Slade, architect of the HMS Victory. His ships balanced firepower, speed, and seaworthiness like no others. In France, designers favored speed and elegance. In Spain, size and ornamentation. But all aimed for the same goal: a ship that could stand in the line and survive. What made a ship of the line so formidable? Let us take the British first rate as our example, the ultimate expression of the type. She was 226 feet long, 69 meters from bowsprit to stern, with a true beam of 51 feet, 15.5 meters. Her displacement was over 3,500 tons, and she carried 100 to 120 guns on 3 continuous gun decks. The lower deck held massive Eider 32-pounder cannons, each weighing over 3 tons, capable of smashing through enemy hulls at 400 yards. The middle deck carried Stilsikja in 24-pounders. The upper deck, 12-pounders, Sira, and the quarterdeck and forecastle mounted lighter carronades call for close-range devastation. Her Jusquet sail plan was immense: 27 to 30 sails on 3 masts, covering up to 54,000 square feet, more than an acre. In a good wind, she could make 8 to 10 knots. Though maneuvering such a behemoth took skill and time, the crew numbered 800 to 900 men, sailors, marines, officers, surgeons, cooks, and boys as young as 12. Life was harsh. They slept in hammocks slung between guns, ate hardtack infested with weevils, and drank beer or rum to avoid polluted water. Discipline was enforced by the lash, morale by prize money and patriotism. Innovations abounded. Copper sheathing, introduced in the 1780s, protected hulls from shipworm and fouling, increasing speed and range. Gunlocks, flintlock mechanisms on cannons allowed safer, more accurate firing. Pass improved rigging. And Dahré helm designs made steering more responsive. Yet for all her power, the ship of the line was vulnerable. A single fire could ignite her powder stores. A storm could dismast her. And in battle, she was only as strong as the weakest ship in her line. Ships of the line rarely sailed alone. They operated in fleets under admirals whose names became legend: Nelson, Rodney, de Grasse, Cordoba. Their primary role was fleet engagement, to seek out the enemy's line and break it with concentrated fire. Tactics were formalized: crossing the T, sailing perpendicular to the enemy line to unleash full broadsides, or doubling, sailing down both sides of the enemy line. But they also served as flagships carrying admirals and their staffs. They escorted convoys, protected colonies, and projected imperial power. During the Prasen, American Revolutionary War, French and British ships of the line clashed off the Chesapeake, deciding the fate of a new nation. In the Napoleonic Wars, They blockaded French ports for years, starving Napoleon's navy of action. Notable expeditions included 1759. Admiral Hawke's pursuit of the French fleet into Quiberon Bay in a storm, a daring victory that saved Britain from invasion. 1781. The Battle of the Chesapeake, where de Grasse's French fleet prevented British reinforcements from reaching Yorktown. 1798. Nelson's destruction of Napoleon's fleet at the Battle of the Nile, trapping his army in Egypt. 1805. The Pabra Battle of Trafalgar, where Nelson's innovative tactics shattered the Franco-Spanish fleet, securing British naval supremacy for a century. In these battles, ships of the line absorbed unimaginable punishment. At Trafalgar, the HMS Victory took over 50 hits to her hull. The redoubtable, her French opponent, was so shattered she sank days later. Every ship of the line had a story. The HMS Royal George, a 100-gun first-rate, sank at anchor in 1782 when she heeled over during routine maintenance, drowning over 800 people. One of the worst peacetime disasters in Royal Navy history. The French Orient, flagship at the Nile, exploded in a cataclysmic fireball after her magazine ignited. A blast so bright it turned night into day, witnessed miles away. And then there was HMS Victory. Launched in 1765 at Troyes. She served for decades before becoming Nelson's flagship at Trafalgar. Though riddled with shot and mourning her admiral, she limped home to become a national icon. Today she rests in dry dock at Portsmouth, a living museum, 90% original wood, her scars still visible. Legends grew around these ships. Sailors believed they had souls. The Victory was said to be haunted by Nelson's ghost, the Sovereign of the Seas. 1637, with her 102 guns and gilded stern, was called the Wonder of the Age. So magnificent that King Charles I bankrupted the treasury to build her. Though steam and iron made them obsolete by the 1850s, ships of the line never vanished from memory. In literature, they sailed through Patrick O'Brien's Aubrey Maturin series, C. S. Forrester's Horatio Hornblower, Gear, and Theresa Herman Melville's White Jacket. In film, they thunder across the screen in Master and Commander, Pirates of the Caribbean, and Nelson. Museums preserve them. Besides the Victory, replicas like the USS Constitution. A heavy frigate, not a ship of the line, but of the same era, and the old Spanish Santissima Trinidad. Reconstructed in models, keep their memory alive. Naval academies still study their tactics. The phrase ship of the line entered the language as a metaphor for any dominant force in its field. And, in the hearts of maritime enthusiasts, they remain the purest expression of the age of sail. A time when men trusted their lives to wood and wind, and nations rose or fell on the strength of their floating fortresses. The ship of the line was never just a weapon. She was a statement of wealth, of engineering, of national will. She carried the dreams of empires and the bones of forgotten sailors. She was beautiful and brutal, majestic and mortal. Her era ended not with defeat, but with progress. Steam engines, iron hulls, and explosive shells made her obsolete. The last true ship of the line, Britain's HMS Victoria. 1859 was converted to steam before completion. Yet her legacy endures. In every modern warship, there is a whisper of the line-ahead formation. In every naval academy, a lesson from Trafalgar. In every child who gazes at a model ship, a spark of wonder for those who sailed the wooden walls of old. Today, as container ships cross oceans in silence and satellites watch from above, it is humbling to remember a time when war was fought with canvas and courage, and the greatest ships in the world were made of trees. So, let us honor them not as relics, but as teachers. For the ships of the line remind us that even the mightiest creations are bound by the limits of their time, and that true greatness lies not in invincibility, but in the courage to sail into the unknown, guns ready, sails full, and heart unbroken. And as the tide turns once more, their ghosts still ride the wind, silent, proud, eternal.